everybody. Welcome to
Hello.
React. You and me, BP1 and BP2.
Indeed.
We're here with another US informational video. American soldier versus British soldier.
Soldier?
Get my words out.
Soldier?
So the data we've got here is from 2021. It's
Okay.
by the infographics show.
All right.
I'm just going to watch the video and learn.
Learn.
Size,
Add some comments.
Things, comments.
Yeah. Compare. Contrast.
All right.
Bullshit. Before we move on, I'd like to say a big thank you to our new Patreon, Mr. G-Man. Thanks for joining. And also a little shout out to our friend John at Macias Music Man. We had some issues with some copyright regarding the Eagles. If you've had some issues with that, check out our video and what we did and what happened to us. See if it happened to you if you're a reactor. So we shout him out. Thank you very much, John. Still on game.
Yeah, still John. Hopefully we can get that sorted. Appreciate that. So go check out John's channel for sure. All right.
Please do.
Let's go. Let's do it. Let's get into
It's
it.
2025, and after a strange shift in geopolitics and world powers, the USA and the UK have found themselves going to war with each other. These longtime allies that once fought side by side in World War II in Afghanistan have become arch enemies fighting for global dominance. The rest of the world looks on in horror. But who will win? There's one fact that's hard to ignore. One side is larger than the other by a long way.
No
the
shit.
United States. Based on size alone, the U.S. military is the clear winner. It boasts over 1.4 million personnel, compared with a measly 149,000 in the UK. That might not guarantee success if the whole U.S. Army consists of untrained airheads and idiots, but it doesn't hurt. Especially when you consider the amount the U.S. spends. The American military budget is a huge $740 billion compared with the UK's much smaller $49 billion.
49?
Money can't buy you everything in life, but it helps to win wars. But to be fair, both countries take their military spending seriously. In terms of GDP, the USA spends 3.4% on the military, and the UK spends around 1.7%. That figure won't help the Brits win a war, but it's something they can nurse their national egos with. So far, things aren't looking good for the Brits. They've been outnumbered and outspent. Let's see if they can turn things around with their equipment. As they say, it's not all about the size, it's about how you use it. Which country has the best weapons, gadgets, and vehicles? If we're talking about quantities, the USA gets an easy win here, as you'd expect. They spend far more on the military overall, so of course, they have more stuff. The UK only has 227 tanks compared to the USA's 8,370. As for armored vehicles, the UK has 4,673 and the USA has 41,760. Is the UK's lack of resources such a big deal? Experience shows us that yes it is. During the Afghanistan conflict in 2007, the British Army stationed in the south of the country had been finding it increasingly difficult to maintain peace over the last 3 years because of their lack of equipment. Guess who had to sweep in to save them? The Americans.
Cheers, guys.
The U.S. Brigadier General Lawrence Nicholson
And
brought
they
in
bought Pizza Hut.
4,000 Marines with a new approach. Go big, go strong, go fast. The new forces weren't exactly successful in maintaining peace, as anyone familiar with the Kandahar massacre and the Maiwan district murders will know, but they were good at going big and going strong, which could give the US an edge in battle. In Afghanistan, the British used Jackal vehicles, which are designed for maneuverability rather than protecting the person inside. The Americans had MRAPs, or mine-resistant ambush-protected vehicles. Although MRAP tanks are classified as light armored vehicles, they weigh a massive 14 to 18 tons and are a lot sturdier than the Jackals, designed to withstand the improvised explosive devices that threatened troops during the Iraq and Afghanistan conflicts. They were much more effective at keeping the troops safe from danger than anything the Brits had. However, the U.S. Marines seem to have plenty of admiration for the Brits and what they achieved, despite their lack of equipment. So that's something. One American Marine commented, "The biggest thing I noticed was the vehicles they drive. You guys are friggin' gutsy. I wouldn't get shot at in one of those."
Yeah, fair play.
All right, fair enough. So this is, well, it says American soldier versus British soldier, but at the moment it's more an army military comparison.
Yep.
Obviously, more people, more money,
massive more people,
more
equipment,
much
more equipment.
So yeah, I mean it's and it's, I guess it's a percentages game as well, because obviously in Britain we're only 60 million of us actually in Britain.
Hanging out
whereas
here.
in America, there's a considerable amount more.
As we found out in one of our other reactions, where we compared, US states to the size of the UK.
Oh, the size,
yeah.
Well, just Texas is
just
bigger
Texas
than the UK.
alone. So there's your comparison right there. I mean, so far I'm agreeing with everything he says. I was one of those 184,000 at one time. Equipment was pretty sparse, and unfortunately, like you say, I mean, I recall that the British military did try and come up with a vehicle suited to that condition, but when you're behind the curve and you've got to make it from scratch, by the time you get it into service and everything, it's outdated. Things have moved on, so that doesn't help either.
No. All right, let's keep going. If you're enjoying this video, hit the thumbs up button. It helps us out at the channel, gets this out to more people. It's good. It's a good comparison for, I guess, for the US, if you're watching from the US, and obviously from us Brits as well, to understand a bit more about the size of militaries and
exactly
weapons.
how small we are. Yeah.
All right, let's keep going.
Does having more flimsy vehicles make the British the weaker side, or just more badass? It depends on which way you look at it.
Wow.
Another difference between the British and US armies is their deployment of women on the front line. We don't want to say women are better or worse in the military than men, because that'd probably start a war in the comments section, so we'll let you decide, but it's definitely worth mentioning. In Afghanistan, the US Marines were shocked to see women wandering around shower blocks wrapped in nothing but a towel, with no cares in the world. The US does have women in the armed forces, but they aren't always allowed to be on the front line or live in close proximity to their male counterparts. In the UK, on the other hand, women are seen as equals. Revolutionary concept. Despite their surprise at the close working and living relationships between women and men in the British Army, the US Marines soon realized these women were professional soldiers they needed to take seriously. But could the initial shock be a trump card up the sleeves of the British? Anyway, time to get on to the important stuff. The real factors that determine the success of the military side. Who can handle the most alcohol? It's a contentious topic.
Wow.
The British are known for drinking more heavily.
I like the research this man's done.
But the US soldiers might give them a run for their money. Around 40% of US soldiers indulge in binge drinking. I know what you're thinking. What does this have to do with the power of their militaries? Although drinking is a skill that might be impressive on a wild night out on the town, it's not a positive thing during combat. It's important for soldiers to keep their mental health stable over extended periods of combat. The soldiers might use alcohol as a way of coping with difficult experiences they encounter during the military, instead of talking about them. Over half of British servicemen and women drank at a level that could harm their health in 2018, most likely to self-medicate for a mental health condition such as PTSD or post-traumatic stress disorder. Similarly, alcohol as a coping mechanism is a huge problem among veterans.
Unfortunately,
things just got dark. Back to a more
did indeed, mate.
topic.
Yeah.
You can't mention the drinking preferences of the British without mentioning their ultimate beverage of choice, tea. In contrast, the U.S. prefers coffee. Does this affect the combat performance of either side? Time to find out. Many British tanks and armored vehicles are fitted with water-boiling devices. Cube-shaped kettles enable the troops to boil water inside the protection of a tank and drink tea to their heart's content. Maybe that's why the British were willing to sacrifice the sturdiness of their vehicles in Afghanistan.
As long as it had a BV in there, mate.
Not to mention pointless, but hear us out. During World War II, a large number of fatalities were caused by crew members having to leave the safety of their tanks when they needed a break. There was only one reasonable solution: let them make a brew inside the tank. That way, the troops were less of a target for enemy fire. 10 out of 10 for ingenuity. Who knows, maybe this could be their secret weapon in a future war. There's nothing like a fresh brew to keep an army going. But don't discount the Americans, because they also seem to recognize the importance of a lovely warm beverage. The U.S. Army aims to ensure coffee is always available to its soldiers, whether in ration packs or at garrisons. Sometimes there are shortages, so improvisation comes into play to give the soldiers their daily fix. During the Korean War, some soldiers indulged in sock coffee filtered using a sock. Or if the worst comes to worst, they just mix instant coffee granules with cold water and down it like a shot of vodka. Lovely. It's worth it to have that caffeine coursing through your veins ready for battle. Clearly, both sides have their vices, but we'll have to give the Brits the edge on this one, based purely on the fact that they're less likely to drop dead from swallowing some questionable feet fungi. In this
Or if you watch Blackadder, I think Baldrick comes up with a nice cup of coffee, otherwise known as
Cunning Plan.
Mud, I think it is.
Mud. Sugar?
Yeah, dandruff.
Dandruff. I mean, I first-hand experience here. I can contest that if you're ever out on exercise and you sort of met up in a mass deployment area, the army chefs would have a massive tea urn on the go. Probably had about 58 sugars in it, condensed milk, so it was sweet as anything, but highly sought after. And likely, similarly with the armoured personnel carriers, we used to have a boiling vessel, BV, in there, and as you're driving along, you plug it in, chuck your tins in there of your food that you're going to eat that day, boil them up, lovely, everything was boiled, everything tasted the same, but as he said, always got a cup of tea on the go.
BV.
Big massive BV, boiling vessel.
Boiling vessel, I didn't know that.
Everything's an acronym, man.
Get the BV on.
Foobard.
Brilliant. Okay, that's quite funny. If you're not a member of our channel but you've watched this before, or maybe you're new,
please
watched this
do.
for the first time, please hit the subscribe button. Come with us. We do all sorts on the channel, which is a couple of Brits trying to learn our way through music, sport,
through life,
yeah, in general. And we've got a great little community on the channel, so come and be a part of that, and don't be shy to say hello. All right, let's keep going.
Capitalist world, soldiers aren't just fighting for their national pride or a noble cause. They also want to receive their paycheck at the end of it all. The draft ended in 1973 after the Vietnam War in the USA, making the Army a professional, career-oriented force. In the British Army, the national service officially ended in 1960, and it transformed into a professional army in 1963. So who gets the fattest check? New recruits in the British Army start on a salary of £15,985 a year in training, soon going up to $20,400 when becoming a private. After a few years, if they can reach the rank of sergeant, the salary will go up to £35,853 a year. That's around $46,000. In the U.S. Army, new recruits can expect to earn $24,512 a year as a private first class after initial training. A sergeant earns anything up to $29,610 a year. So we have a clear winner here. Let's hope the Americans don't find out, or they could end up switching sides. Now that would be an interesting war. With so much money, you'd hope the British soldiers would go through a half-decent training program. Let's find out if that's the case. In the UK, most soldiers complete a 14-week common military syllabus, followed by specialist training for different trades and divisions. US soldiers train for slightly less time. They complete a 10-week basic combat training course, then complete more career-oriented training. Overall, both countries offer a similar style of training based on fitness, discipline, and weaponry. It's hard to say that one country is definitively superior here, but there is one key difference: the age of the recruits. A U.S. soldier must be 17 to join the forces with parental consent, or 18 without the consent. Meanwhile, Brits can join at the age of 16 if they have parental consent, making the UK the only NATO country to recruit young people into...
Can't fight.
Can't fight.
No, but can be part of the wider army.
Yeah. So I joined at 16, sort of, and then got deployed to my unit at 17, just over 17. So I sort of did a year's basic training. So you do your normal military training, and then they were then sort of taught on signalling, driving. I was in the artillery, so then I learned about gunnery and all that sort of thing. And then by the time you get to your unit at 17, you don't have to do your training. You're all ready to go, and then you sort of specialise down from there. So I ended up on surface-to-air missiles. Always comes in handy if you need a surface-to-air missile operator. Can't find one? I'm in the phone book somewhere.
There you go. All right, let's keep going. Enjoying this so far. Bit of humour in there, as well as, you know, bit of data.
Yeah.
It's military at age 16. It's a controversial policy, considering these recruits must remain in the Army until they're 22, and they can't even vote or drink alcohol until they turn 18. With literal boys among them who might have joined the forces as a rash decision, could British soldiers be flakier and less mature than their US counterparts? Or is their youth just a testament to how tough they are? But this is just the beginning. Average soldiers might make up the bulk of the Army, but what about the guys that are really, really well trained? We're talking about elite special forces. The British Army has the famous SAS, or Special Air Service. Founded during World War II, it's one of the oldest special forces and has the highest entry requirement of all British forces, with the motto, "Who dares wins." The SAS is respected and feared across the globe in equal measure. It's heavily involved in reconnaissance and counterterrorism, meaning most of their work is below the radar and people like us can't get too nosy about it. However, they do plenty of cool and hardcore stuff, like rescuing hostages. Not to be outdone, the U.S. Army has the highly respected and admired Delta Force, also known as the 1st Special Forces Operation Detachment. Formed in 1977, it's known as one of the most secretive U.S. forces and specializes in counterterrorism and hostage rescue. Sounding familiar yet? Allegedly, the Delta Force was modeled on the British SAS. We want to give the Brits the point here for sheer originality, but it's not exactly good news for them if the Americans know the training secrets and operations of their elite forces.
There is that.
That's a rookie error if there ever was one. Especially
Didn't tell them
when
everything.
there are way more U.S. soldiers and they have better equipment. What about the heads of the armies? The U.S. Army serves the government of the USA, making the President of the U.S. Commander-in-Chief. Meanwhile, the British Army serves Her Majesty the Queen as head of the armed forces, who is also their Commander-in-Chief. Her Majesty the Queen Elizabeth is closely tied to the British military, having been a wife, mother, and even grandmother of individuals serving in the armed forces. During World War II, the Queen, who was then Princess Elizabeth, joined the Auxiliary Territorial Service herself and learned to maintain and drive military vehicles and ambulances. She even achieved the rank of Honorary Junior Commander while doing her part for the war effort. By comparison, the current U.S. president, as of this script's writing, claimed to suffer bone spurs when it was his time to serve his country. Points here for the badass monarch up to her elbow in Greece, fixing combat vehicles and serving her country. Overall, the British and American armies are matched fairly evenly in terms of their training and structure. It doesn't exactly come as a surprise, considering their histories are so closely linked. Realistically, the Americans would likely have the upper hand in any war against the Brits due to sheer manpower and weaponry. But let's hope the two sides can settle their differences over a cup of tea. Or coffee. Now check out our India and China military comparison.
I think so. I think, you know, with the countries that we are, I think we have similar values. You know, we've always had a good relationship, so I very much doubt that will happen. We enjoy, you know, our American content and everything. So, you know, goddamn, we'd stop us anyway. Even if we did, I don't think the British people would stand for that. Good video, enjoyed it. Found it quite informative, light-hearted, and a bit of fun. So there you go, American soldier, British soldier. It's a numbers game.
Yeah, and I mean, also included in that, I'm just quickly scribbling this down here. So for the UK, you've also got what they call Army Reserves, so you can be like a part-time soldier, join the Army Reserves. So I just noted down that the British have 8,170 reservists compared to the Americans have 799,000 reservists. Also in the US, you've got the National Guard, that's made up of 443,000 personnel. When you come out of the army, like myself, you go on to what's known as long-term reserve up to the age of 40, 45, I think, something like that, where if the shit really hit the fan, they'd run out of everybody else. You can be called back up to join in and get shot at. And you every year you sort of turn up and do an annual meet up, go through some of the skills and things like that, sign the dotted line, and you get paid a wage for that as well. So that's long-term reserve in the British Army. I think who did we say one of the biggest armies in the world, I believe, is it Switzerland? Because every one of those have all got a weapon at home. After they serve their national service, they keep their weapon, and if they're ever called upon, there you go, mate.
Yeah. Well, there you go. All right. Well, hopefully you found that informative. Let us know in the comments. What did you think of that?
Please do.
Are you part of military yourself? Do you have some history in the military? Do let us know. It's always good to understand, you know, who's watching us and you know what your comments are. So we appreciate those. Go on then.
No, I was just going to say, you know, I enjoyed my time in the military. I came out as a fully qualified BV operator, and I can make a mean cup of tea when I need to.
Happy days. If you want to subscribe, just make sure you do. If you haven't already. Anyway, until tomorrow, it's goodbye from me.
Goodbye from that chap over there. Laters.
Toodaloo.